All right, thanks for tuning in. This is a video that I wanted to record for a while. We've had a lot of feedback about customers getting confused with metrics. We have a lot of metrics here on the dashboard. So I thought I would take some time to really go through all of them one by one and explain them. I've done that with many customers on calls, but I figured doing it once for everybody will help. Things are always more complicated than people think. Sometimes I have customers telling me, "Well, I just want to know how many students do I have," right? Um, it's not that simple because what do we count as a student? Is it somebody that had a lesson today? Somebody has a lesson that had a lesson this week? That had a lesson last week? This month, the next 30 days, over the last 30 days? So it really depends on how we look at things. And then, do we count a student that just had a trial but haven't signed up yet, right? That's not really a student just yet. It's somebody who had a trial. Do we count somebody who is no longer a student but just happened to have a makeup lesson and they use them this week? Right? So there's a lot of different ways to look at this data, and we try to really break it down as much as we can, and we continuously make improvements there based on our customers' feedback. But there's just a lot of different ways to look at that data, and hopefully, we've been adding a lot of things over the last few weeks, and try to make it a little bit more clear, and hopefully this video will help. So I'm going to be using here a combination of my own school and going through every metric one by one, and a test account here that we can use as well, and go through each metric and really explain what they mean, and hopefully that will be useful. First thing I want to say is that this dashboard is what owners and managers get by default. When your staff, basically your front desk admins essentially, log in, they get the today dashboard, which you can also get here, which is more a view of what's happening today, what do we need to care about, birthdays, etc. Whereas the dashboard is more about metrics, what managers and owners want to know. If I go to the bottom, what you have on the bottom, which is here, metrics around financials are not going to be visible by your admin staff, although they do get access to the rest of the metrics that are very important as well. The one that, or basically only owners have access to the financial data, right? That's usually how we want it. However, the one in red, the overdue invoices, is one part of the financials that staff and managers do have access to, because they obviously, the ones that are following up to get payments when invoices are overdue. So this one is visible to your admins, your front desk admins and your managers, but they will not see the rest of the financial here. So I thought I would mention that. The other thing that I want to say that I guess could be a little bit more intuitive in our UI, is that this date is clickable, right? So you can view these metrics and you can view whatever they were at any other time in the past, right? So I can go back and say, what were our numbers as of December 31st? And you get that data. And then when you click on the arrow or the cross here, it will go back to the latest value that we have, right? So this is also a way that you can have two windows open and combine and look at, okay, how did we do over the last 3 months, and compare the values, based on a previous date. The other thing I want to add, it's also very important. Many people don't read this, but these metrics are not up to date instantaneously, right? The system is very complex. We deal with millions of invoices and data in our databases, and the data is up to date on a continuous basis every few hours, usually 6 to 12 hours maximum, but within 3 to 6 hours, or around 6 hours, you should get updated data, right? But if you just signed up a student, it's not necessarily going to show up right away in your active subscriptions. It will take a few hours to be reflected there. So that's another frequently asked question that we get. Okay, so let's go through all these metrics one by one, right? So we have them broken down in different categories: client and staff, subscriptions. Then we have reputation, if you have Opus One IO Plus, credits, SMS, email, and then the financials. Okay, clients and staff. So first one is the total clients. So total clients is every single account you have in Opus One IO. And that could be an active student, an old student, their mom, their dad, their godfather, whoever is involved with those kids. It's anybody who have an account for, an account meaning somebody with a username, which is an email, sorry, and a first name and a last name at the very least, and potentially more data. It's clickable, right? So if I click on this, I get all my clients. and you can scroll down and you can export that as CSV, and you can see all these clients. So here you have, for example, a parent and their three dependents, right? Or let's pick another example here. You would have a student and their dad or their mom or all the account managers or whoever is involved, right? So this is a total number of basically user entries in our database for your business. That doesn't mean they're necessarily active. They could be old, new, prospects. Doesn't matter. It's everybody. So this is going to be a pretty large number, and that will just accumulate over time because you're not going to delete all the customers. You're going to keep their records. The next number is a number of new accounts created in the last 30 days, right? So how many new accounts have been added, right? And usually you can have one kid, one parent, or one kid, two parents. That gives you an idea, but this is just an indication of how many new accounts were created. Again, this is also clickable, right? So you can click here and sorry, go back to the dashboard. You can each of those are clickable, and you can see exactly who we're talking about. So these are the accounts that were created in that period of time. Next is the online staff. By the way, you also notice that each of those has a little hover. So you just hover your mouse on top of it, and you will have some explanation, right? So the next one is online staff. These are how many active teachers, essentially, or teachers that have logged in online. Usually, most of your teachers should log in to check their schedule at the very least. So you see here I have 48 teachers that have logged on at least once in the last 30 days. Next is how many actual users, so that could be mom, kids, including staff, that have logged in the last 30 days. So here I have 1,116 users that have logged into the platform in the last 30 days. This is a metric that's useful to watch when you first go live the first few months, where you want to make sure you have user adoption and you want to make sure that people are logging into their account and that they're checking their invoices, canceling their lessons, booking their makeups, etc., and that you have activity and traction within your users. Okay. Next are what we call active clients, right? So a client here as opposed to a staff. So that's a client that is active. But what we mean by active is somebody that has at least one scheduled lesson. It doesn't have to be recurring. It doesn't have to be a subscription lesson. It doesn't have to be an ongoing lesson. It's any lesson, whether it's a makeup, like a one-off, a makeup, a trial, whether it is a recurring lesson. So anybody that has, and these are unique clients, right? So the same client having 10 lessons within 30 days will count as one. This gives you an idea of your overall number of active clients, including one-off lessons, right? Over that period of time. So here we show you the last 30 days and the next 30 days, right? So that gives you kind of an idea. Usually we want the next 30 days to be higher than the last 30 days. My school is losing 20 students here overall. Although, of course, over time we add more trials, so that usually increases over time. But this is the period of time that we're looking at. Last 30 days, next 30 days, active client overall, whether it's a one-off or whether it's a subscription lesson or recurring lesson, whatever you want to call it. And then we break this down by number of students, of clients. And that doesn't include the moms, right? Unless the mom takes a lesson as well, then she will be an active client. But to us, a mom is an individual, or a dad, a parent, an account manager, what you want to call it, is an individual that that we talk to and that pays the bills, etc. But it's not necessarily an active client unless they have lessons as well. So the same active clients over the last 30 days is broken down between what we call appointments, which is private lessons. Private lessons can also be semi-private, so that's appointments. Sessions, which are group classes, and then events, which are usually performing events like recitals, right? So we do, we have about 22 here, 129 there, about 100 students taking group classes here, and 1,261 students having at least one lesson. Next, we have active staff. So this is any staff that has, in the next 30 days, a lesson scheduled, right? So that would not count, for example, your admin staff, right? So that's why, for example, for my school here, I have a little bit less active staff here than, sorry, online staff, because online staff includes my director, my admin staff, a few different people involved with the school that don't necessarily teach, so they're not on the calendar, they're not on the schedule, but they logged in. So these are just the scheduled staff in the next 30 days. Conversion rate is your trial conversion rate. If you set up your trial services correctly, we can track conversion. We have other videos on that topic. You can also click on it and you will see all the trials that you have, or at least all the service that are we call converting services. So usually that's what you call a trial, or previews, or intros. Different schools have different names for it. And these are going to be your overall conversion rate. And obviously you want something in the 60 to 80% here. Sometimes students have more than one lesson one trial with more than one teacher, so that will bring the numbers down. But you have that number right here. So these are the clients related numbers. When you look at all clients, you're going to see a breakdown also by locations and by statuses, right? So all the different statuses are going to be here. Those that have the member status, those that have the member loss status, prospect follow-up. The client status is an old status that we don't really use much. As you see, I still have a lot of them who have it. Something that we used in the past that we kind of deprecated since. If you're a new Plus customer, you probably don't even see it. But if you've been with us for a while, you may have those. Doesn't really mean anything. We deprecated it because it didn't make sense. And you also have a breakdown by locations, right? So we have the same active clients in the last 30 days, but by location, right? So I have my Mountain View studio, my second Mountain View studio, and my Palo Alto studio with a number of active students in that period of time. The online students, and we still have one student taking lessons at home. And then we have also some other exams and other things going on, right? So this is the breakdown on the all clients page, which also has an advanced search now, so you can do much more advanced queries and have a lot more filters to look for your clients. Let's go back to the dashboard. Now we're looking at subscriptions. Subscriptions are not necessarily individuals, they are subscriptions, right? So normally when people ask me how many clients do I have, and we're going to get to the total number of subscribers, which is probably the best answer to that question. I usually recommend business owners to not just focus on how many students you have. These are going to be the numbers that you see here and maybe here, but focus on the number of subscriptions you have, right? What matters for our business is recurring revenue. It's recurring students. So students that are on ongoing group classes, or students that are taking weekly lessons and paying monthly, for example. And one student could maybe do piano, violin, and voice, right? And that could be 3 subscriptions, right? So if a staff signs up one student for 3 instruments or 2 students for 1 instrument each, I prefer 1 student doing 3 than 2 doing one each, right? So the metric I recommend to track, and the one I track for my school, is a total number of active subscriptions. So these are the total number of subscriptions. And again, one student may have more than one. When you hover on it, we actually break it down by payment plan. So you can have a breakdown by duration, instruments, depending on how you name your payment plans. And so this is the total number of subscriptions. As you can see, we still have 1 violin rental. We don't really do that anymore, but you can have different type of subscriptions, right? And we break that down further because there's different ways to look at that number. For example, I just mentioned the violin rental. That's not really something, if you do a lot of rentals, or if you have subscriptions for monthly fees or for yearly fees, whether they're rental or membership fees, those are going to be extra, and they're almost going to double your numbers, right? So you may not want to count those. And then in that case, you may want to look at what we call the active subscriptions for booking, right? Booking is basically anything that's booked on the calendar, right? A subscription that has appointments or dates scheduled on the calendar with it, right? So that would be either a group class or a private lesson recurring, but that will not include what we call subscription-only subscriptions, which could be like rentals or monthly fees, yearly fees, etc., right? So for most people, this number might be the same. As you see, I have different enough set of just one, because we have 1 violin rental. Everything else is a booking appointment, a booking subscription at my school. But yeah, for some of you that do use subscriptions for rentals or monthly or yearly fees, this number can be almost double this one, right? So you might want to look at this one. Also, I want to point out something before I continue, is that these are, as of right now, these are the active subscriptions, right? Some of those active subscriptions might be ending this month, if like today's the 31st of January. Some of those may be ending in the next few hours, but they're still currently active because they haven't ended yet, right? And that's why, for example, we have a metric that says how many subscriptions are ending this month. So right now, as of January 31st, we have 51 students that are dropping out. And this is the number here, and I'm going to get back to that number in a minute. There's a few more things to say on that, right? So let's go back to here. So we have total number of active subscriptions. Total number of active subscriptions as of right now that are for actual lessons, not monthly or yearly fees. Now we have the breakdown between appointment versus sessions. So we have group classes and appointment here. And again, all of these are clickable. So when you click on them, you'll get the exact list of who we're talking about here. So if you click on a subscription report, you're going to get subscriptions. If you click on the clients tab, you're going to get clients. So appointment and sessions. And then we also have a number that arguably makes even more sense than actually this one, is the same number as the booking subscription, but weighted. And what we mean by weighted is that usually a single student or a single subscription for 60-minute lessons is going to be worth twice what a 30-minute lesson subscription is worth. I could even argue, but that's a longer topic, that it's even worth more because 2 students doing 30 minutes each is more chance for headaches than 1 student doing 60 minutes, right? So the revenue of 1 student doing 60 minutes might be worth more than the revenue of 2 students doing 30 minutes each. Again, this is arguable, but at least there is a factor of 2 because usually 60 minutes lessons are going to be charged twice what 30 minutes lessons are charged. So if your staff signs up, 2 students for 30 minutes each, is it better than if they sign up, 1 student for 60 minutes, right? Maybe not, right? So at the very least, it's, 1 student or 2 students doing 60 minutes is better than 3 doing 30, right? In terms of revenue. So the weighted number of active subscription is a good number to track overall to see the health of your business in terms of recurring revenue and subscriptions. Excuse me. Now we have another breakdown of the same booking, or actually the same breakdown of active subscriptions, but by what we call membership. So this is another setting you can play with. We added this because some schools, for example, sometimes have students with active subscriptions that don't necessarily make them a member, right? Let's say you attended a summer program for a week, you get a subscription for that week and for that month, but that doesn't make you a member of the school. It's just a temporary subscription, like a one-off weekly class for the summer, or you're part of a certain adult program that just doesn't make you a member. And again, the member is just a concept that you have to label students, right? So we have payment plans that you can say, if I have an active subscription with that payment plans, it makes me a member. And if I have or not, right? So that's, as you can see from my school, it doesn't make any difference. 1368 is the same, right? So we just basically have one violin rental, 1369, and 1368 active subscriptions. And of course, when we weigh the 60 minutes, it gives us a much higher number. Now, these are all different views on your current active subscriptions. Like I said, some of them might be ending this month, and we'll talk about that in a second. And some of them might not have started yet, right? I mean, these are the currently active, but you see we have 31 that are pending that are basically not active yet, right? So we know we have 31 coming soon that are going to be probably usually the beginning of the next month, so actually tomorrow for these ones. And if I actually look at the next again, you can click on that to see who they are, right, for your school. Now, we also now have metrics about how many are either starting in the, let's go through them one by one, sorry. So the next one, new last 30 days, are basically the number of subscriptions that were created in the last 30 days. But they may have started, some of them may be starting next month or the following month, right? The creation date doesn't mean when they actually start. It means when they were created. So you know that, or at least I know here that my staff has created 57 subscriptions in the last 30 days. They're not necessarily all starting this month. Funny enough, you see that I do have the next number, which is how many subscriptions are starting this month. It's higher than those started in the last 30 days. What does that mean? That means that we had the holiday, right? Right before the end of the new year a few weeks ago. So there's a bunch of subscriptions starting this month that were created like more than 30 days ago, right? Which is not uncommon because a lot of people will sign up early December for January, right? That makes a lot of sense here. Then I have the number of subscriptions starting in the next 30 days. Those ending this month. So you have starting this month, ending this month. So it's usually good to have more starting than ending, right? And how many are starting in the next 30 days and ending in the next 30 days. And then we have the net projected growth, which is right now the number of 51 minus 29. Sorry, 29 minus 51 here, which is minus 22, which means that in the next 30 days, we actually have more subscriptions ending than starting, right? So normally you want this to be positive, but sometime over time, as you can see, we have sometime more subscriptions start in a given period of time than those ending when you look at month to month. Another thing I want to add here, which used to be very confusing, and that's we fixed several months ago now. In Opus One IO, when somebody switched from, let's say, piano to violin, right, or from 30 minutes to 45 minutes lessons, it's a new subscription. So if you use the correct subscription replace, you basically, we end one subscription and the booking associated with it, and then we start a new subscription with the booking that goes with it, let's say starting next month, right? So, so previously you would see, previously as of last summer, 2023, it would be a little bit confusing because you would see subscriptions ending and then new subscriptions starting that would basically cancel each other out. But it's not really a loss and a gain, right? It was actually just, somebody switching instruments or switching durations, right? So what we made as a change about 6 months ago is, and if you see here, we have we spell it out as in number of subscriptions effectively starting, right? So what we call effectively starting here is not a subscription that's replacing another one, right? So it's not somebody switching from 30 to 45 and starting a new 45 minutes subscription. If you did a replace, we know that it's one replacing the other. So we basically don't count it. We don't count it as a subscription ending and a subscription starting, right? So that's the concept of effectively ending or effectively starting. So we basically don't count in these metrics subscriptions that were basically just ended and being replaced by another one, right? And if you look at your subscription report, let's go back to the dashboard here. I don't know if I have an actual example here, but when you look at your metrics, by default, we do not include those that are being replaced or that are replacing another one. Although you could if you really want to see everybody, right? So we've added a lot of filters over time here. So I really encourage you to play with them and to click on different metrics and see what you're getting to really understand what you get. Let's go back to the dashboard. Okay, so these are basically, and it's sometimes tricky because people don't realize that you can have a subscription created in the last 30 days, but that was ended, a week later because maybe a mistake was made and a new one was created. So, these numbers sometimes, customers look at them and they're like, well, it's a little bit overwhelming. I don't know exactly what that counts. And hopefully making it clickable makes a big difference. But yeah, you have to understand there's a lot of different variables. Subscription can be created at a certain time, they can start at a certain time, and they can end at a certain time. Sometime when a mistake is made, you have a subscription created, it starts, let's say, in February, and sometimes it ends before it even starts because it was created by mistake, right? So, you're gonna sometimes see those show up in your numbers. Okay, the next set of metrics that we added recently by popular demand is looking at the same value, so the same value of active subscription, booking, appointment sessions, but based on the number of unique subscribers, right? So for example, if you have 1,369 active subscriptions, and obviously some of those students have more than one subscription, basically what you look at is the total number of unique subscribers, meaning the number of students that are currently have an active subscription, right? So usually now when people ask me, how many students do I have, right? The easiest answer to that question is this, right? This is kind of what you would want to look at. And then we broke it down by potentially booking versus member versus, and then within booking, the breakdown between appointment, which is private lessons, and group classes that are sessions here, right? So hopefully that gives people more granularity if you're looking just at the number of students that are having active subscriptions in that period of time versus just the total number of subscriptions. Again, one student could have more than one subscription. And then finally, if you do subscription holds at my school, for example, we let people go on hold exceptionally if they have a medical reason. So if they break their arm, we let them put their account on hold for a few weeks and keep their spot. Or during the summer, we let people go on summer hold. Different schools have different policies around that. We give you that those metrics as well here. So who is on hold currently? And looks like this hold is ending next month, so they're coming back. Great. So yeah, hopefully this is useful. There's a lot, as you can see, a lot of metrics, a lot of things to look into. Another thing I want to point out is sometime, you have pending subscriptions, and those students may have a subscription that hasn't started yet, but they may be already, I don't know if I have a good example I can show you on my test system here. Okay, let's say I'm going to look at who's pending here, right? So these are people, as you can see, that have a subscription that hasn't started yet, right? Today is January 31st. The subscription is created, and it hasn't been ended yet, and it hasn't even started yet, so it's pending, right? But you see, we already label these students as members, right? So the students are labeled as member, and if I click on it, you can even say as of January 31st. And we thought it made more sense to say, okay, somebody that just signed up and starting in the near future should be considered a member, but technically their subscription is not active and are not starting until a few days from now, right? So sometimes people are confused because they say my number of students with a member tag, classification, is not the same as my number of unique subscribers, right? So this is probably where the difference is, and you want to look at that. Okay, so these are the subscriptions number, which is usually the most important number in terms of recurring revenue at your school. Now let's go continue with the dashboard. The rest is more self-explanatory. If you're using Opus One IO Plus, you're getting the breakdown of Yelp and Google reviews, the actual rating for each of your locations, and the number of reviews you have. And when you click on them, we get the review wall that everybody loves, where you can see all your reviews, when they were posted, by who, broken down by location. And this is a public page that you can put on your website as well, where people can see all your reviews in one place. And of course, they can see that they're real reviews because we take them straight to Yelp or straight to Google, where the real review is. And also we give them easy button to add another review, or for your customers that haven't reviewed yet. I strongly encourage, whether you're already an Opus One IO Plus customer or not, to consider getting more reviews. It's the best. It's better than SEO. I would argue it's even better than ads. It's the best way to get your music school traction. So we're at my school, we really work hard to get hundreds of reviews, and it's what sets us apart from a lot of our competitors in our area. And we have a full webinar on using Opus One IO Plus to get reviews. I really recommend you take a look at it. Okay, so reputation, so your reviews per location, between Google and Yelp. Then credits, so number of monetary credit versus service credits, and amounts that are, and those that are expiring, etc. So, and again, these are clickable and you can see the details. For those of you who use Opus One IO Plus, the same metrics for email. So if using our new email marketing features, and you do your newsletters and you're replacing your Constant Contact, ActiveCampaign, MailChimp, and etc. with a more integrated solution, you now have how many emails were sent in the last 30 days, the bounce rate. 3.4 is actually pretty high. I need to work with my team to get that reduced. That means we have people that emails are bouncing. And by the way, you can actually see, if you go to, I'm going to show you that on my test system. When you go to your clients, you can see accounts that are flagged. And we have the concept of hard bounce and soft bounce that's actually coming from our hosting provider, AWS. Soft bounce can be a temporary unavailable email, so it's usually not a cause for concern. But a hard bounce is somebody that clearly has an email that's wrong, right? So if you want to make sure that you have good emails in your system, You might want to have your staff filter your clients that have their email bouncing, which means those emails are invalid, and go through them and get the proper email, especially if they're inactive students and you want to make sure they get your next recital announcement, for example. Okay, let's continue. So we had email stats, then SMS, how many SMS you sent. Total, keep in mind that SMSs are actually per segment, right? So you could send one SMS. We have a whole FAQ on that as well. When you add emojis and certain special characters, the encoding of your SMS changes and they end up taking a lot more space. So the same message that says 200 characters would already be more than one segment because a segment is 160 characters. But if you switch to using emojis, which are nice and cute, but they change the encoding of your messages, so you end up with a one SMS sent to one person that's end up being like 3 or 4 segments instead of 1 or 2. So your number of SMS can quickly skyrocket. If you're sending a batch SMS to 2,000 people and your SMS is 5 segments, there goes your 10,000 SMS for the month, right? So you got to be careful with that. And obviously, we're being charged by the carriers by SMS segments. So I encourage you to understand what that means. And then you have your financials that are also broken down by tags. That could be age ranges, instruments, different tag that you set on your services, and how much invoices were closed this month, no matter if the invoice was due this month or not, with the breakdown by tags as well. How much money you have due next month, how much is currently processing. So processing is when somebody pays by credit card, it's a very short amount of time where the invoice is in processing status. Now, if you're using ACH in the United States, it can take 3 to 5 days for that invoice to process, for that payment to process. So those invoices are not going to be marked as open anymore. They're not going to be marked as closed yet, but they will be in processing until we have settlement for that bank transfer, right? So you have to be careful about that. And then you have, of course, your revenue and your graph of revenue, right? So I think that's all for today. I hope that was useful. We really went through every single metric here. If you have questions, as usual, please send them to our support, not to the Facebook group. Please, this Facebook group is not for support. It's for connecting with other Opus One.io users and exchanging ideas and getting updates. If you have any questions, contact our support, and we'll be happy to help you and look at your metrics with you and make sure you understand them. And if you have feedback and suggestions, obviously, we're always happy to hear them. So thank you for watching. And again, I hope that was useful. Thank you.